Chapter 1930, The End. Chapter 1930, The End. Later, the other battles continued. However, just like the previous round, where many people avoided the mysterious and powerful cultivator, many who truly wanted to enter the Eastern Deity Island chose to avoid Futian. Futian was too strong. Among the 36 chess pieces, the mysterious and powerful cultivator from the previous round lost one piece in his battles. However, Futian kept all 36 of his chess pieces. If they had encountered him, they would clearly fail to win. As such, they had no choice but to continue waiting. That way their chances would be higher. Of course, there were still some strong individuals who chose not to wait and stepped on the chessboard to battle. Futian did not pay attention to the battlefield. The appearance of the mysterious and powerful cultivator in the Punlai continent was already a rare event. It was highly unlikely for another person who could threaten him to appear. After some time, all 9 victors had been decided. All 9 cultivators above the chessboard traded glances with one another. Then, the other 8 focused their gazes on Futian. It was as if it was undeniable that Futian would become the protagonist of the upcoming battle. "Let's have the fighters enter the chessboard then," announced the Eastern Deity Island's deity. Then, in an instant, the silhouettes of the 9 cultivators drifted down toward the chessboard. After they landed on the chessboard, chess pieces instantly surrounded them. 8 pairs of eyes remained glued to a single location. In that location, a white outfit fluttered in the air as the white-haired Renhuang's body slowly descended. As he landed, 36 chess pieces appeared and emitted bright and beautiful lights. Vong! The moment Futian landed on the chessboard, the other 8 cultivators actually initiated their attacks at the same time. There was no hesitation. It was as if they had already come to some agreement, and it was to target Futian. This made many onlookers show a surprised expression. It looked like the other cultivators had already communicated via voice transmission earlier. All 8 cultivators attacking one person at the same time, and as soon as the opponent landed was shameful behavior. After all, they were all Renhuangs. However, it was understandable. Faced against Futian's overwhelming strength, if they did not employ extreme and unusual measures, they would have no chance of winning. Attacks of the Great Path, transformed from chess pieces, came at Futian from 8 directions. High-pitched and frightening sounds came from multiple directions around Futian. However, at the same time, Futian's 36 chess pieces began to spin and hovered around Futian's body before transforming into multiple blades of the intimidating sword wills. The 36 chess pieces turned into 36 sword wills. The 36 sword wills generated an endless amount of sword silhouettes. As they circled and flew around Futian's body, a sword screen was created. With Futian's body as the center, the sword screen surrounded him and emitted a frightening tearing noise. Intense sounds of crashing and clashing ensued. When the attacks of the Great Path transformed from chess pieces arrived and hit the sword screen, they were instantly torn apart and disintegrated into nothingness. The attacking chess pieces were crushed into bits and pieces instead. The scene made many feel despair. The huge gap in their powers of the Great Path made the might of their path contained in the chess pieces far weaker than Futian's, which meant that it was impossible for them to defeat Futian. Their chess pieces would initiate the attack. However, they were still obliterated by their opponent's defense. How were they supposed to fight? The difference in quality was something that could never be fixed by an increase in quantity. It was just like having many low-plane Renhuangs fight against a high-plane Renhuang. The conclusion of the battle would never be in doubt. As such, this battle also had no suspense. Seeing their chess pieces crushed to dust, the cultivators recalled their chess pieces. Futian waved his hand, and his 36 chess pieces drew multiple beautiful curves, creating multiple blades of light that flew across the sky and crushed all the remaining Great Path chess pieces of the other cultivators. When Futian destroyed all the chess pieces of the other participants, the chess pieces around him remained the same, all 36 pieces of them. He did not lose a single one. Not a single loss. Even stronger than the mysterious cultivator from before. Earlier, everyone had thought that the mysterious cultivator's result of losing only one chess piece would be a record for this session of Eastern Deity Islands opening. No one would have thought it possible that that record would be broken so quickly. Yi Futian easily surpassed him and defeated all of his opponents with a perfect performance. For two amazingly exceptional people to pop up at the same time, it truly expanded the horizons of many people. The people of Eastern Deity Island would probably rejoice at this. Shengguan Qiuye watched as Yi Futian walked toward the high platform beside the Eastern Deity Gate. She wondered if Yi Futian would be the brightest individual for Eastern Deity Islands opening this time. In that case, the Eastern Deity Island would most certainly try to court him. If Yi Futian could borrow Eastern Deity Island's strength, he would no longer have to be afraid of the Jun clan. While Eastern Deity Island had avoided secular world affairs and cultivation in recent years, they had actually continued to accumulate and build their strength. Now their actual strength was a mystery. No one knew just how strong they were. However, based on Shengguan Qiuye's guess, it was definitely not weaker than some of those major factions on the Penglai continent. Even though the Eastern Deity Island suffered a major disaster in the past, its background was something that should not be ignored. Even after many years had passed, inherited great path opportunities and medicinal pills within the Eastern Deity Island's territory were things that countless practitioners coveted, as evidenced by every opening of the Eastern Deity Island once every decade. With such a strong background, Shengguan Qiuye inferred that Eastern Deity Island's actual strength at the moment might actually surpass some of the more common major factions in the Penglai continent. However, just how strong? That was harder to predict. Even the titans of the Penglai continent could not determine it. As such, if the Eastern Deity Island was willing to help Yi Futian, the threat of the Jun clan would no longer be that huge. With that thought, Shengguan Qiuye raised her eyebrows and looked at Yi Futian high up above. Did he display such overwhelming strength because this was his objective in the first place? After all, everyone knew that once they left Eastern Deity Island, the cultivators of the Jun clan would most definitely target Yi Futian. First, he pulled her into the fray and locked her Shengguan clan in. After that, he set up the Eastern Deity Island. It looked like Yi Futian had already planned for everything since a long time ago. After glancing at Jun Qiuyan behind her, Shengguan Qiuye decided in her mind that, no matter what, regardless of whether she could befriend Yi Futian, at the very least, she would not become Yi Futian's enemy. Otherwise, even if they could suppress Yi Futian for a while, if an opportunity was found by Yi Futian, they could be eradicated like Jun Qiuyan and the other cultivators from the Jun clan. Also, she wanted to get a chance to step across the Eastern Deity Gate. After seeing Yi Futian and witnessing his strength, Shengguan Qiuye felt as if all her previous assets and strengths that she was proud of were not even worth mentioning. She needed to become a lot stronger. The Divine Prefecture was too big. There were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. While Penglai continent was still a relatively large continent, at the very least, it was situated in a central area among thousands of continents. Compared to the entire Divine Prefecture, it was still too small. She wanted to see things that were even further away. Yi Futian reached the high platform beside the Eastern Deity Gate. He sat down silently. On his side was the mysterious cultivator. Jiang Jiuming, said the youngster to Yi Futian. It seemed like that was his name. Ever since stepping on Eastern Deity Island, he had never revealed his name once. This was the first time. Perhaps it was because he recognized Yi Futian's strength. He did not expect someone to do better than him. To arrive with all 36 chess pieces still intact. A perfect performance. Of course, he did not pay too much attention to the difference of one chess piece. He was not all that serious back then. Otherwise, he would have been able to replicate Yi Futian's result and not lose a single chess piece. Yu Yunyan, replied Yi Futian. Before he gained the strength to face the most powerful people, he did not plan on using his real name. As such, he kept using the name of Yi Lionian. While the Divine Prefecture was large, the factions standing at the peak could still be in touch, and as a result, hear about events occurring in the original realm. So he still needed to be careful. Jiang Jiuming did not say anything else after saying his name. He kept his eyes closed as he continued to cultivate. It was as if he did not care about what would happen outside in the world. Futian also sat there in silence. He cultivated quietly. Time ticked away slowly. Battles on the chessboard continued. However, no one as powerful as Futian or Jiang Jiuming, who could directly crush the other opponents, appeared. Competition and schemes between participants continued to take place, and alliances and betrayals also kept occurring. Apart from raw strength, one's luck and intelligence were also tested. After all, one would most definitely lose when targeted by a group, and was also surrounded, unless there was an absolute strength advantage. Earlier, an honest-looking Renhuang displayed great intelligence and planning. He took part in the battle with a very narrow victory. He only had 9 chess pieces left when he entered the second round 9-way battle. The other participants did not seem to even notice his existence. However, at the last moment, this person actually showed an incredibly powerful strength that was not any weaker than the other fighters. In the end, with just 1 chess piece remaining, he managed to defeat his opponent after an intense battle. This forced everyone to become even more cautious. They no longer dared to simply focus on the strong players. They also had to be wary of those who may seem weak. Sheng Guanchuya ultimately made it through using her strength and a little bit of luck, and arrived on the high platform. As time passed, more and more cultivators took part in the battles. By then, the high platform had 7 people. However, the number of people outside the chessboard did not go down. Instead, the crowd got larger. Many cultivators from the illusory sky domain had gathered there. Eastern Deity Island was not going to keep waiting. When it was a certain time, they would directly shut down the chessboard. Otherwise, some people would continue to stay on the sidelines forever, until the number of strong people had significantly reduced. However, in such a situation, the event itself would lose its meaning. Several people gazed at the people sitting on the platforms high above. These people won the right to access the island's center and receive one of Eastern Deity Island's divine pill of the Great Path. Finally, after 2 more won their rounds, an Eastern Deity Island deity announced that the chessboard matrix matches would end. Those who had failed to join had missed their chances. Up until that point, 9 practitioners gained the right to access Eastern Deity Island's central area. Every single one of them was an exceptional character. Of course, the 2 people who shone the brightest were Jiang Jiuming and Futian, both of whom left a strong impression on everyone. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1931. Condor-sama's position is threatened. Chapter 1931. Condor-sama's position is threatened. In front of the Eastern Deity Gate, a group of people stood. Aside from Futian and the other 8 candidates, all the members they brought to Eastern Deity Island were also present. The cultivators who were qualified to enter the core island of Eastern Deity Island could bring along 1 other person with them. Of course, the others merely accompanied them and would not receive benefits. However, Eastern Deity Island allowed them to tag along so that the candidates would feel comfortable. Everyone, please enter. There will be people to welcome you on the island. A goddess of Eastern Deity Island instructed the crowd. The Eastern Deity Gate before them glowed with ethereal light. The crowd nodded their heads. One by one, they stepped forward and entered the Eastern Deity Gate. Let us head in, Futian said. Their group advanced. They naturally brought along Jun Qiuyan, and immediately stepped through the gate. After stepping through the Eastern Deity Gate, they entered into an ethereal place. When they emerged, they felt a refreshing sensation that made them feel very comfortable. Fragrances swept over them, and beautiful scenery filled their fields of vision. This place was like Shangri-La. Birds sang and flowers filled the air with their fragrances. The air of goddesses swept over them. A group of goddesses dressed in white was waiting there. When they saw the cultivators emerging, the goddesses came forward and bowed slightly. Futian saw a beautiful woman approach him. She gently said, "Congratulations, Pavilion Master Yi." It was Bai Mu, the goddess who had invited him to Eastern Deity Island. The members of Eastern Deity Island naturally had their own means to come here. They did not need to pass through the Eastern Deity Gate. Goddess, you are too kind. Yi Futian smiled slightly as he bowed back at her. The other goddesses who came forward were also those who invited the other 8 candidates here. However, Jiang Jiuming had not actually been invited. He had come on his own accord. Right then, an extremely beautiful woman with an otherworldly temperament appeared. Even among the various goddesses, she still stood out from the crowd. She was breathtaking. She walked over to Jiang Jiuming and bowed slightly as she said, "We did not expect that young Master Jiang would come. Forgive our lapse in hospitality. Island Lord asked me to come and welcome you." Her words caused the surrounding people to reveal strange looks. Island Lord had personally sent someone to welcome Jiang Jiuming? That meant that Jiang Jiuming's identity was extraordinary. Yi Futian also revealed a pondering look. Even though Jun Xiuyan was a member of a top force of the Penglai continent, Eastern Deity Island was not that concerned about whether he was alive or dead. Yi Futian was controlling Jun Xiuyan, and the members of Eastern Deity Island did not question it. They seemed to leave Yi Futian to his own devices. However, their attitude towards Jiang Jiuming was so different. From this, one could tell how huge the difference between the two of them was. This meant that Jiang Jiuming's identity was not something that Jun Xiuyan, a young master of a force of the Penglai continent, could compare with. What did this mean? It seemed clear that Jiang Jiuming came from a force even more powerful than a top force of the Penglai continent. Even the Island Lord of Eastern Deity Island had sent her greetings. Island Lord is too kind. I came without being invited this time, so I should be asking her forgiveness instead. Jiang Jiuming replied with a faint smile. He had the air of a handsome young man that made people feel comfortable around him. Eastern Deity Island has a rule that whoever has obtained an Eastern Deity token may enter the island. Young Master Jiang does not need to be so apologetic. Eastern Deity Island is honored to have you here. The woman continued politely. When Jun Xiuyan, who was being controlled, overheard the conversation between them, he felt his heart turn cold. This was the place that he had always wanted to enter. It was just that he had never imagined that he would do so in such a fashion. However, what was even more humiliating was that when he arrived here, the members of Eastern Deity Island did not question the situation he was in. Yet they were so polite to another cultivator. Goddess Bai, for the sake of Jun clan, let me leave Eastern Deity Island, Jun Xiuyan pleaded. His voice sounded exceptionally frail and weak. He seemed to be begging the members of Eastern Deity Island to let him go. Jun Xiuyan was also invited here by Bai Mu. He hated Bai Mu. If Bai Mu had not stopped him back then when they were outside Eastern Deity Island, he would have known Yi Futian's level of ability. In the Penglai Deity region, no matter what he did, he couldn't end up in such a predicament. On the continent, Yi Futian would have died miserably. Yet because of Bai Mu, he had given Yi Futian some leeway, and had not forcefully made a move. Thus he had ended up in his current miserable state. However, even though his hatred for her burned intensely inside of him, he still spoke in a pleading tone. He did not dare to reveal any of his hatred. He only wished that Eastern Deity Island would take into consideration that he was from the Jun clan. After all, this was Eastern Deity Island. They had the power to help him. Bai Mu looked at Jun Xiuyan. She seemed somewhat troubled. She indeed invited Jun Xiuyan, and his status was indeed extraordinary. He was a member of a top force of the Penglai continent. In a different situation, she would have certainly helped him. However, Jun Xiuyan had actively sought out Yi Futian, now resulting in the outcome was a person whom the Island Lord had personally mentioned. She could not be concerned about Jun Xiuyan's fate then. She looked at the woman who had walked out just now. The other party's beautiful eyes had landed on Jun Xiuyan. Are you Goddess Huang? Jun Xiuyan asked gently as he looked at the woman. This Goddess Huang was rumored to be a disciple whom the Eastern Deity Island Lord especially favored. Her status was above all the others. Even on Eastern Deity Island, her position was extremely high. Goddess Huang glanced at Jun Xiuyan and said, Young Master Jun should also know the rules of Eastern Deity Island. Since you entered Eastern Deity Island, you agreed that your life and death are up to fate. Our Eastern Deity Island will not get involved. I apologize for being unable to do anything. Jun Xiuyan's face was as pale as ash. He felt a sense of despair. Even here, the members of Eastern Deity Island would not interfere. These bitches. Would they offend the Jun clan, just because Yi Futian was more outstanding than he was? Regardless, the Jun clan was still a huge entity on the Penglai continent. Yi Futian had not said anything all this while. Even if Jun Chuyan begged, Yi Futian would let him do as he pleased. At the same time, Yi Futian was also observing the cultivators of Eastern Deity Island. When he saw the reaction of Goddess Huang, Yi Futian speculated that with Eastern Deity Island's current ability, they might not need to be concerned about the Jun clan. Maybe the declining Eastern Deity Island was far more powerful than what people imagined? Everyone, please enter the island, Goddess Huang said as she led the crowd forward. She accompanied Jiang Jiuming and chatted casually with him. The others had their own goddesses who invited them here. Bai Mu stood beside Yi Futian and gently said, "Pavilion Master Yi, your achievements on Eastern Deity Island have been amazing." "Goddess, you speak too highly of me," Yi Futian replied with a smile. Everything that occurred on Eastern Deity Island probably could not escape their sight. After all, this was originally the other party's territory. At that moment, a silhouette flew over to where they were from afar. This silhouette was wearing a fiery red robe that was exceptionally eye-catching. Her temperament was also outstanding. The formless flames that emanated from her body were especially powerful. "Zifeng," Goddess Huang exclaimed with a smile as she saw the person who was approaching. The silhouette, who was approaching them, was actually the phoenix whom Yi Futian had encountered under the Wutong. Zifeng's gaze was instead focused on Yi Futian. She stepped forward and actually stood next to Yi Futian. This caused him to reveal a strange look. "Is she the progeny of Lord Phoenix?" Jiang Jiuming asked. Goddess Huang nodded slightly and answered, "Zifeng is the daughter of Lord Phoenix." Jiang Jiuming glanced over at Zifeng with a serious look in his eyes. When Zifeng noticed his gaze, she similarly swept a glance at him. Her eyes seemed to contain a frightening divine fire. It actually caused Jiang Jiuming to feel a sharp pain in his eyes. He secretly felt that it was incredible. Back when Lord Phoenix was cultivating the divine fire of Wudong, it was a flame of the great path of the two extremes of life and death. Its might was terrifying. This Zifeng had continued inheriting this divine fire of the great path. Her cultivation was absolutely terrifying, and her potential was extremely high. "The seniors of my clan have great admiration for Lord Phoenix," Jiang Jiuming said softly. He then looked at Zifeng. "If the opportunity arises in the future, Goddess Zifeng can come visit my Jiang clan." Zifeng looked at Jiang Jiuming, but did not respond. She did not know who Jiang Jiuming was. "Zifeng, young Master Jiang is from the ancient royal family Jiang clan. If you have the chance in the future, you can visit their clan," Goddess Huang explained. This astonished the surrounding people. The surname Jiang was actually from that ancient royal family that had existed for countless eons. He was from there. Shengguan Qiuya was slightly surprised. She had previously speculated Jiang Jiuming's identity. Now that she had confirmation, her heart wavered. The ancient royal family Jiang clan's ability was no weaker than that of Eastern Deity Island back in the day. They had giant-level existences. In the present day, the ancient royal family Jiang clan would be more powerful than Eastern Deity Island. Cultivators from thousands of continents had come here to train from experience. They wanted to obtain fateful encounters of the Great Path. Yet for the ancient royal family, they did not need to do so. They lacked nothing. Even extremely precious pills and elixirs would not be so precious to the ancient royal family. Yi Futian naturally understood when he saw the slight changes in the look in Shengguan Qiuya's eyes. So Jiang Jiuming was from the ancient royal family. The situation should be the same as that of the forces with giant figures Yi Futian had encountered previously in the original realm. Jiang Jiuming might be the first cultivator from such a force that he had encountered ever since he arrived in the Divine Prefecture. "Island Lord has already agreed to let me follow you to train after you leave Eastern Deity Island," Zifeng explained to Yi Futian softly as she stood next to him. This caused Shengguan Qiuya to stop in her tracks for a moment. Her gaze was frozen. Coming to Eastern Deity Island to train this time was truly exciting. First, Jun Shuyan's cultivation had been crippled. Later, Shangguan Qiuya encountered a cultivator of the ancient royal family Jiang clan. Now the daughter of Lord Phoenix, the sacred phoenix of Wudong Island, wanted to follow Yi Futian out to train. What was going on? She was the divine bird of Wudong Island, an existence that even an 8th-tier cultivator could not handle. For countless years, numerous cultivators had sought her out or coveted the divine fire of Wudong, but no one had ever succeeded. Yet now, the divine bird had proactively claimed that the island lord had given her agreement. Zifeng would follow Yi Futian to train in the outside world. This was practically unbelievable. Shangguan Qiuya's beautiful eyes looked at Yi Futian. No one could tell what emotion was in that gaze. However, at that moment behind them, Condor Sama's feathers were all standing straight up. Condor Sama's position was threatened. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Little Condor naturally could tell that this phoenix was incredible, much more so than he was. Little Condor naturally could tell that this phoenix was incredible, much more so than he was. Now this brat actually wanted to follow Master to train in the outside world. Wasn't she trying to fight for Master's favor with Condor-sama? The crucial point was that this brat was female, and was beautiful. It was too much of a challenge for Condor-sama. Alright, Yi Futian replied as he nodded his head. He naturally would not reject a sacred phoenix from following him. This sacred phoenix had unlimited potential, and could cultivate to become a top-tier demonic existence. There were many demonic beasts in the world, yet there were a rare few that could cultivate to become a top-tier demonic beast. By cultivating the divine fire of Wudong, sacred phoenix, who had a flawless great path, would have a chance. Eastern Deity Island Lord also agreed to let her pursue her own cultivation. That way, Yi Futian could establish his relationship with Eastern Deity Island. After he left Eastern Deity Island, the pressure from the Jun clan of the Penglai continent would naturally be solved. What about the divine fire of Wudong? Yi Futian asked as he smiled at Zifeng. Zifeng revealed a strange look. The divine fire of Wudong was in the Wudong. She could only rely on its power to cultivate. It was difficult to take it with her. Can I try and see whether we can take it with you? Yi Futian said to Zifeng. Zifeng's beautiful eyes revealed a strange look as she looked at him. She could take the divine fire with her? Then before this, when he played the guqin and approached her, why did she feel as though she had been conned? That is if you need it. If you don't need it, then forget about it. Yi Futian continued with a smile. His gaze was gentle, and made others feel very comfortable. Zifeng looked him in the eye. He did not seem like a trickster. She had already made arrangements with elder sister Island Lord. She naturally could not change her mind. However, could he truly bring the divine fire of Wudong along with them? In front of them, Jiang Jiuming turned his head back and glanced at Zifeng and Yi Futian. He never imagined that the offspring of Lord Phoenix would actually follow Yi Futian willingly. As expected, this person was extremely outstanding. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to emerge victorious in the game of chess and enter through the Eastern Deity Gate. The group continued advancing. Bai Mu, who was beside Yi Futian, said to him, "Island Lord has ordered us to prepare a banquet and to also allow you to select pills." "Many thanks," Yi Futian replied as he nodded his head. The group continued forward and passed by many places. The core island of Eastern Deity Island was like a painting. It was a sight to behold. Walking around here made people feel comfortable, like they were encapsulated in its poetic beauty. Finally, they came before an ancient palace. A banquet was already laid out. Many goddesses were standing in various locations, seeming there to welcome them. Such a scale made Yi Futian and the others feel flattered. Eastern Deity Island's standing was extraordinary. They bestowed cultivators with fateful encounters of the Great Path, and also gifted them pills. They also treated them so well that there was nothing for them to nitpick about. "Everyone, please be seated. Make yourselves comfortable," Goddess Huang announced with a smile. The group immediately found their seats. Goddess Huang brought Jiang Jiuming to the head seat. After all, the status of the ancient royal family Jiang clan needed to be respected. Yi Futian did not mind. His group simply found a spot to sit in the center of the crowd. Bai Mu was also taking care of them, occasionally chatting with them. There were many seats in front of the banquet, seemingly prepared for the other cultivators of Eastern Deity Island. Aside from that, at the very front, there was a master seat that was reserved for the master of this banquet. "Island Lord will come in person momentarily," Bai Mu explained softly when she saw Yi Futian glancing over in that direction. Yi Futian nodded. He had never imagined that Eastern Deity Island would be so grand. Voices could be heard coming from nearby. The crowd turned their gazes in the direction of the voices. They saw a group of silhouettes, who were talking casually to each other, appear. These people had an outstanding temperament, and their cultivation was all at the Runhuang Plain. Some had dignified appearances, while others had elegant airs to them. Previously, every person the crowd had seen was a woman. This group of silhouettes that appeared was all men. "It is Emperor Pingyuan," Shengguan Shuya said at that moment as she narrowed her gaze slightly. She was focused on one person among them. Her beautiful eyes revealed a strange look. Two other Penglai continent cultivators also made sounds. They also seemed to call out someone's name. They had clearly recognized someone. Yi Futian looked at Shengguan Shuya. As she looked over there, she explained, "He is a renowned Runhuang on Penglai continent. He has been famous for a long time. 10 years ago, he entered Eastern Deity Island to cultivate. After coming back, he rarely appeared in public. I never thought that he had entered Eastern Deity Island again. It seems that the rumors were actually true." "What rumors?" Yi Futian asked. "Many powerful Renhuangs who come to Eastern Deity Island to train will be invited to stay here to cultivate, becoming a member of the island. My clansman once mentioned this before. I have heard of a few of these people. Today I managed to see some of them with my own eyes. It still comes as a surprise," Shengguan Shuya explained. "There are actually so many cultivators here. There seem to be many famous figures from long ago among them." Yi Futian did not feel too surprised by this. Eastern Deity Island had invited cultivators from thousands of continents to come here to train. They provided many benefits to the cultivators. They naturally had their own agenda for doing so. It was impossible for them to do so purely just to aid the people of the world in their cultivation. Eastern Deity Island, should be planning to bolster their forces. This might be related to the fall of Eastern Deity Island's supreme deity Donglai back then. With so many prominent figures coming to Eastern Deity Island each time, how could Eastern Deity Island miss this opportunity? They would naturally extend invitations to Futian and the rest. They would receive similar treatment as well. On the other hand, the cultivators who came to Eastern Deity Island similarly wanted to rely on the resources of the island. Either that or Eastern Deity Island proposed enough favorable conditions to make the offer irresistible. If so, it was not strange for the cultivators to join Eastern Deity Island. The cultivators who arrived chatted and laughed as they looked over at the people sitting here. Many of them revealed friendly smiles. From the appearances of the cultivators, they seemed to be living very fulfilled lives. Do you know who I am? Emperor Pingyuan asked as he looked at Shangguan Xiuya. Prior to this, Shangguan Xiuya had not spoken through transmitted thoughts. She had been talking to them out loud. With Emperor Pingyuan's level of cultivation, he naturally overheard her. Shangguan Xiuya replied, nodding her head. I am Shangguan Xiuya from Shangguan clan. Pleased to meet you, senior. So you are the little girl from the Shangguan clan. You have reached such a high plane to be able to come here. Not bad, Emperor Pingyuan commented. His cultivation was powerful. He was now an 8th-tier existence. Shangguan Xiuya was indeed a junior in his eyes. Senior, have you been cultivating on Eastern Deity Island all this while? Shangguan Xiuya asked. Most of the time. I will occasionally go outside, Emperor Pingyuan replied. Eastern Deity Island has many special training grounds as well as countless pills and spirit herbs suitable for cultivating. Little girl, you should also join Eastern Deity Island. It will certainly be greatly beneficial to your cultivation. Shangguan Xiuya smiled, but did not give a reply. Emperor Pingyuan had praised Eastern Deity Island so highly. From the looks of it, these people were indeed sincere. Eastern Deity Island must have aided them in their cultivation with sufficient sincerity, in order for these cultivators to actively invite other Renhuangs to join. At that moment, there were cries of astonishment. Many goddesses bowed slightly in one direction and called out, Island Lord. The crowd turned to look in that direction. They saw an empress-like silhouette walk over towards them. Her appearance was otherworldly. It made others feel enchanted at a glance. At the same time, those who gazed upon her felt a sense of distance between them, as though she was untouchable. She was the Eastern Deity Island Lord. Shangguan Xiuya thought to herself. This was also her first time seeing the Island Lord. Prior to this, she had heard about her. Almost no one from the Penglai continent had seen her before. Island Lord's beauty was peerless. She walked up to the master seat and looked at the crowd. Greeting, Island Lord. Right now, even the powerful cultivators who just arrived also bowed slightly as they greeted the Island Lord. They seemed to show this female Island Lord great respect. Everyone, you are all too kind, Island Lord replied as she bowed back at the crowd with a smile. Her gaze shifted over to Futian's side. She said, This time, Eastern Deity Island is open and once again has welcomed prominent figures from all over. This is a grand occasion for the island. Hence, we have invited you all here today for a few drinks. I hope you all won't mind the short notice. Island Lord is too kind, someone said. Eastern Deity Island Lord had such a high status. She would definitely not be inferior when compared to the heads of the top forces of the Penglai continent. For her to personally appear to sit with them was already a great honor. Everyone, you do not need to be so formal. Please sit, Island Lord said as she extended her hand when she saw many people getting up. She also sat on her master seat. She looked at the crowd and said, Eastern Deity Island has a rule that those who can make it here will be gifted with pills. Naturally, today will be no exception. I am sure that you all have been waiting for this moment for a long while. As she said this, she looked behind her. 9 silhouettes stepped forward. In each of their hands they held a porcelain bottle. Inside the bottles contained extremely precious pills of the Great Path. There are 9 pills here. Each pill is a superb grade pill. The 9 people who have made it here today can each choose 1 pill. Please choose, the female Island Lord continued. The gazes of the crowd were all on the pills in the hands of the 9 goddesses. However, Jiang Jiuming still had his head lowered as he sat there quietly. He did not look at the pills. Although these pills were precious for cultivating, for him, these were not that important. The reason why he had come here was not for these pills, but for the Eastern Deity Islands elixir. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The female island lord looked at the crowd in the banquet below and ordered the goddesses, "Introduce these pills to our guests." The female island lord looked at the crowd in the banquet below and ordered the goddesses, "Introduce these pills to our guests." Understood. The 9 goddesses answered as they nodded their heads. The first person looked at the pill she held in her hands and explained, "This is the refined thunder mastering pellet. After refining it into one's body, it can immediately improve one's physical constitution, even if they are at the Runhuang plane. It can improve one's sensory control over the great path of thunder. It can also refine one's body into a body of thunder. The pellet is refined from cloudwood." Cloudwood, Yi Futian stated as he looked at the purple pill. It was extremely eye-catching. There was frightening energy contained within it that could be felt even though it was sealed away within the pill. Before this, Beigong Ao had broken through to the next plane after obtaining cloudwood. His abilities had greatly improved, and he had defeated many 8th-tier existences. Now this pill was refined from cloudwood. It was a superb grade lightning attribute pill. "I will take it," Yi Futian exclaimed. This caused the crowd to be stunned. The female island lord looked at Yi Futian and asked, "Have you decided so quickly? Don't you want to take a look at the other pills first?" "There is no need to do so. Since I have decided, may I make my pick first?" Yi Futian replied with a smile. The female island lord nodded her head and answered, "Of course you can. Since Runhuang Yi has laid claim to this pill first, it will go to Runhuang Yi." "Many thanks, island lord." Yi Futian thanked her as he nodded his head. The goddess immediately handed over the pill to Yi Futian. After receiving the pill, Yi Futian turned around and passed it to Beigong Shuang. He said, "This pill is more suitable for your use. After we are done here, refine it and cultivate." The people at the banquet were stunned when they saw this. Some looked at Yi Futian with strange looks. Yi Futian had given a top-grade pill to someone else just like that? Pills were very precious. The higher the grade of a pill was, the rarer they would be. Very few people could refine them in the first place. Many cultivators were absorbed in their cultivation. Few people would spend large amounts of time on other matters. After all, the priority in the world of cultivation was one's cultivation. The strength of one's ability was more important than anything else. However, Yi Futian had given a top-grade pill to someone else immediately after receiving it. From the looks of it, he had rushed to choose to give it to her. He didn't even bother to listen to the introduction of the other pills. This could only mean that Yi Futian was not concerned about this pill at all. The female island lord also glanced at Yi Futian with a smile. Before this, she had seen Yi Futian's performance. He was indeed perfect and extremely outstanding. It was normal for such an extraordinary person not to consider such a pill precious. This fellow was somewhat interesting. Beigong Ao and Beigong Shuang were also stunned. Beigong Shuang looked at Yi Futian with a strange look. Before this fellow had not allowed her to approach him. Now he had given her such a precious pill. She truly could not understand him. "Pavilion Master, we cannot accept any more gifts from you," Beigong Ao said. Yi Futian had already allowed Beigong Ao a fateful encounter. Now he had given his daughter a precious pill. His debt of gratitude towards Yi Futian was growing larger and larger. "Take it. Didn't you mention before that you initially wanted her to inherit the cloudwood? You broke through to the next plane after obtaining the cloudwood. It was a great achievement. Now that this pill is suitable for her, why do you refuse?" Yi Futian asked casually. He did not seem to mind at all. Beigong Ao had no counter to him. He then nodded his head seriously and said, "Many thanks, Pavilion Master." Beigong Ao was intelligent and good at making decisions. He prioritized benefits. However, right now he was moved. The demeanor of some people could make one change. Now he knew what others meant when they said a man would die for his friends. Previously, he was just a 7th-tier upper-level Renhuang. Be it the cloudwood or the pill, both were beyond his level. If it weren't for Yi Futian, these objects would be unattainable. On the other side, Emperor Helion revealed a faint look of disappointment. However, he quickly covered it up. He had known Yi Futian first. At that time, Beigong Ao was still against them. Although they would later come together, Emperor Helion was still closer to Yi Futian. Yet, after entering Eastern Deity Island, they coincidentally came across the Cloud Wood, and Beigong Ao received a fateful encounter with the Great Path. He was more of a help to Yi Futian than Emperor Helion was. Emperor Helion knew that Yi Futian was not playing favorites, and that these events had all been coincidences. If they encountered an item that could aid Emperor Helion's cultivation, Yi Futian would also help him obtain it. However, Emperor Helion could not help but admire Beigong Ao as he became better. Yi Futian also did not say anything. He was indeed not picking favorites. Everything was just luck. They just had to bow to fate. If Yi Futian had the chance, he would naturally also help Emperor Helion. Once one reached their plane, some things did not need to be further explained. After that, the goddesses continued introducing the other pills one by one. They were all very precious pills of the Great Path. Yi Futian listened attentively. Among them, a few pills made his heart itch slightly. However, it was just an urge. The pills could not result in any material changes to his cultivation. With the life spirit of the world tree, his sensory ability of the Great Path was already extremely powerful. The effects of the pills would most likely be limited. It was just as Yi Futian had raved about before. He had a divine body of the heavenly path. Even though it was an arrogant form of speech, in reality, this could be considered his talent in cultivation. The other cultivators chose their pills one after another. Very quickly, the pills were chosen until only one was left. Only one person had yet to choose. This person was surprisingly Jiang Jiuming. As a descendant of the ancient royal family, these pills did not tempt him. He did not mind. Hence, he did not contend with the others. Young Master Jiang, Goddess Huang said, there is only one pill left. No problem. I will take this pill then. It is quite all right. Jiang Jiuming replied with a smile as he received the pill. He appeared very casual about it. The members of Eastern Deity Island could tell that Jiang Jiuming was not too concerned about it. These pills did not draw his attention. However, the members of Eastern Deity Island naturally knew his identity, so they would not think much of it. The 9 goddesses stepped down. The island lord looked at the crowd and said, "Please enjoy the banquet. Make yourselves comfortable." "Many thanks, island lord." The crowd thanked her as they nodded their heads. They began to enjoy the banquet. Once wine was down their throats, some people began to reveal drunken looks. They had strange expressions as they continued to enjoy their food. They discovered that the power of the Great Path in their bodies was fluctuating. They were all surprised. They looked at each other. They wanted to say something, yet no one did so first. "Haha," an elder, who cultivated on Eastern Deity Island, laughed in another corner. He said, "You should be feeling it now. This banquet is prepared using the ingredients harvested off Eastern Deity Island. All of the dishes are beneficial for cultivation. Although the effects are not as strong as the pills, if taken over long periods of time, they are still very beneficial. Do you want to enjoy such delicacies every day in the future?" The crowd looked at each other. They were all moved. No wonder so many powerful cultivators were willing to stay on Eastern Deity Island to cultivate. The temptation was indeed strong. If you do not have a spiritual partner, you will also have the chance to train with the goddesses of Eastern Deity Island. It all depends on your level, another cultivator jokingly said. He pointed towards a couple across from him and said, "Look at these two. They are a model couple." The crowd looked over at the couple. They were sitting together. The man was handsome and looked extraordinary, while the woman had beauty beyond comparison. They both had an otherworldly air to them. They were both Renhuangs who had become spiritual partners training together. The goddesses of Eastern Deity Island are not so easy to curry favor from. Whether or not these cultivators have the ability to do so has yet to be determined, another person said with a laugh. The island lord had yet to speak, and these fellows had praised Eastern Deity Island so highly. However, the draw of Eastern Deity Island for cultivators was indeed powerful. "Young Master Yi, Do you have a spiritual partner? Bai Mu asked softly beside Yi Futian. She looked at Yi Futian with her beautiful eyes. Her voice was gentle. I have. Yi Futian replied as he smiled and nodded his head. Bai Mu glanced at Xia Qingyuan, who was beside him. She seemed to be sitting the closest to Yi Futian. There was more to their relationship than met the eye. She might be his spiritual partner. For someone to be young Master Ye's spiritual partner, the person must certainly be extremely outstanding, Bai Mu said as she looked at Xia Qingyuan and smiled. However, Xia Qingyuan sat quietly there and did not respond. She did not even look at Bai Mu. Has Goddess always trained on Eastern Deity Island? Yi Futian asked, not continuing to discuss the topic of spiritual partners. Yes, Bai Mu answered, nodding her head. Many years ago, I was found by my master and brought to Eastern Deity Island to train. If it weren't for my master, I would probably have a different life now. Training on Eastern Deity Island could transform one's cultivation physique and talents, forming them into a powerful cultivator. In reality, most of the goddesses of Eastern Deity Island came from non-prominent families. Otherwise, they would not have been brought to Eastern Deity Island. After coming here, their cultivation could be said to have skyrocketed. Hence, they were all grateful towards Eastern Deity Island. Eastern Deity Island also did not force them to do anything. Even on the matter of their spiritual partners, they could choose of their own free will. Yi Futian nodded his head. Eastern Deity Island had innate conditions, which indeed were very attractive to cultivators. From the looks of it now, the ability that Eastern Deity Island accumulated over these past few years was far more powerful than what the outside world imagined it to be. Are you all interested in joining Eastern Deity Island to cultivate? If you are willing to join us, you can freely comprehend any of the great path's fateful encounters on the island in the future. We will also provide sufficient pills to aid you all in cultivating higher planes. At that moment, the master of the banquet, the island lord, finally spoke. She extended her invitation to the cultivators here. The crowd was somewhat quiet. Such a matter was not easily decided in a short amount of time. If they were to receive these benefits and train on Eastern Deity Island, they would be considered members of the island. Eastern Deity Island must be planning for something in the future for them to do so. I will not be joining Eastern Deity Island to train, Jiang Jiuming said with a smile. That is not the reason why I came here. Young Master Jiang, why have you come to Eastern Deity Island? The island lord inquired. Jiang Jiuming looked at the island lord. He smiled and replied, I am here for the item that Senior Supreme Deity Donglai was seeking back in the day. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. When Jiang Jiuming said this, many gazes immediately looked towards him. When Jiang Jiuming said this, many gazes immediately looked towards him. The item that Senior Supreme Deity Donglai was seeking for back in the day? Yi Futian revealed a curious look. He looked at Beigong Ao and the others beside him. He saw that Beigong Ao was also shaking his head. Clearly, Beigong Ao also did not know about it. Did the legendary elixir actually exist? A thought surfaced in Shangguan Chuya's mind. There had indeed been such a rumor circulating within the Penglai continent. It was rumored that Eastern Deity Island had an elixir, and that Supreme Deity Donglai had not truly perished back then. Instead, he had kept sustaining his life with the nourishment of the elixir. However, most people did not believe such rumors. Countless years had passed. It was impossible for Supreme Deity Donglai to still be alive. Island Lord had her gaze similarly locked on Jiang Jiuming. Those beautiful eyes suddenly contained a formless pressure that landed on Jiang Jiuming. These past few years, many people with agendas had made their way to Eastern Deity Island. Jiang clan was an ancient royal family. It was not strange for Jiang Jiuming to know about this. It was just that ever since so many people had failed back then, it had been a long time since anyone had made such a request. She never imagined that Jiang Jiuming would come here for this. Could it be that he thought that he was special? Your level of attainment is still too low. If Renhuang Jiang had come, it might be possible, the female island lord said with a smile. Her tone was somewhat unfriendly. Jiang Jiuming had actually come here, seeking the elixir. How will I know if I don't try? Jiang Jiuming asked, not heeding the attitude of the island lord. He continued saying, even if there is no chance for me, I can at least broaden my horizons. I will have at least seen it before. Are you sure you want to see it? The island lord continued asking. Jiang Jiuming nodded his head and replied, before coming here, I heard of how miraculous the elixir was. Hence, I wanted to see it. I used this opportunity to come to Eastern Deity Island for this reason. I hope Island Lord may grant my wish. Island Lord lifted a wine glass and sipped it with her red lips. She then put it down and looked towards Jiang Jiuming. She immediately got up and came forward. Her long dress trailed behind her. She appeared graceful and dignified, as though she was a peerless empress. All right, since the ancient royal family, Jiang clan wants to see it, I will grant you your wish, the island lord proclaimed loudly. Follow me to the restricted area of Eastern Deity Island. Yes. Many goddesses replied as they stood up and followed Island Lord. Many cultivators looked at each other. Most people also knew about this matter. However, no one had mentioned it before. This was the first time they had heard someone mention it up front. Would the Island Lord also allow them to see it? What was the elixir actually like? On Yi Futian's side, their group was whispering amongst themselves. They were all discussing the elixir. Clearly, for many of them, the elixir of Eastern Deity Island was just the stuff of rumors. It was not real. However, it seemed that it truly existed. Island Lord was also leading them to take a look at it now. Most of the crowd followed the Island Lord. Very quickly, a group of people was traversing through the sky above Eastern Deity Island. After a short while, they arrived at a vast expanse of herb forest. Many cultivators were guarding this place. All sorts of precious and rare medicinal herbs and plants were grown here. They passed over this place. Yi Futian glanced down at the ground below. He actually saw many precious plants that they had seen before on the island. This region was filled with extremely rich signs of life. As they advanced, they came before an ancient towering mountain. A crack was opened on the side of this mountain. A frightening aura emanated from within. It was a rich life aura that made everyone feel very comfortable. The elixir is inside. If you want it, you can enter to retrieve it, the Island Lord declared. This caused the crowd to reveal strange expressions. Would Eastern Deity Island allow people to take the elixir so easily? Of course, this was impossible. That meant that the elixir was not so easily retrieved. However, why was it that a mere pill could not be taken away? Many people were filled with curiosity. Yi Futian looked at Jiang Jiuming. He saw that the other party had a very serious expression. Since he had come for the elixir, he clearly knew more about it than others. He should be clear about everything regarding the elixir. From his expression, Yi Futian understood that the elixir would not be easy to obtain. Island Lord did not say anything. She merely stood quietly to the side and watched them. Then, Jiang Jiuming led the Jiang clan cultivators forward. The rest of the crowd wanted to follow them, yet they were somewhat hesitant to do so. They were worried that the Island Lord would be dissatisfied, so they waited outside. The group of cultivators from the Jiang clan very quickly disappeared into the crack of the ancient mountain, stepping into it. There, the frightening aura of the great path immediately cut off their wills. They were unable to sense what was inside. They could only see with their eyes, but they could not see clearly at all. Rumble. The sound of intense collisions came from inside. It was as though intense currents of the great path were present within there. Various sounds kept coming out from within. The rumbling continued without end. Beside Yi Futian, Zifeng glanced ahead with a cold gaze. She had entered this place before. Even a cultivator of the ancient royal family would not be able to take away the elixir. As expected, not long after, the crowd saw silhouettes emerge from the crack. It was Jiang Jiuming and his group. They all appeared rather disheveled. Many of their clothes were tattered, and some were even injured. It was as though they had been through a huge battle. This caused Yi Futian to reveal a strange expression. Wasn't the elixir hidden within? Why had they emerged in such a state? Could it be that the elixir could fight back? That was impossible. Or could it be that the elixir had a guardian beast protecting it? Jiang Jiuming revealed a look of disappointment. He saluted with his fists at the Island Lord and said, "Thank you very much for your generosity, Island Lord." "You are welcome," Island Lord replied casually. "If anyone here is interested, you can continue to give it a try. As long as you can retrieve the elixir, it is yours." These words were like a slap to the face. It was obvious that they would not be able to take the elixir away. This scene caused Yi Futian to reveal a bizarre expression. From their conversation, it was clear that the elixir was indeed inside. Otherwise, the cultivators of the ancient royal family Jiang clan would not have spoken so politely. Although the elixir was in there, no one could take it away. It was not just Yi Futian. Everyone else was also filled with curiosity. They wanted to know what exactly had happened inside. Island Lord obviously noticed the crowd's interest. She looked towards the crack and said, "If you want to know, you can go inside and take a look. However, be careful. Is the divine item, which was refined by the supreme deity Donglai back in the day, truly in there?" someone asked. "You will know if you go in and see for yourself. Since I allowed you to enter, I will not mind. If you want to, you may enter to take a look. If you can retrieve the elixir, that is fine as well," Island Lord continued. She seemed extremely confident that no one could take away the elixir from the Eastern Deity Island's restricted area. If that is the case, there is no harm in letting an old man like me go in and have a look around, an elder said as he walked into the crack. Very soon, the sound of an intense collision could be heard. Not long after, the elder also returned. He was similarly disheveled. His face revealed a bitter smile. Many people looked at him. He merely shook his head and commented, "The Creator is truly miraculous. You will understand when you see it yourself." Upon hearing his words, even more cultivators were curious. Silhouettes entered into the crack one by one, only to return disappointed. Of course, aside from being disappointed, they were also astonished. It was just that none of them revealed what they saw inside, letting the others venture inside to see for themselves. Seeing the returning figures, Shengguan Qiuya, who was beside Yi Futian, asked him, "Are you going in to take a look?" Yi Futian's talent was extraordinary. Before this, he had inherited the fateful encounter of the great path on the cliff face. If he entered the crack in the mountain, would the result be the same? "Do you want to go in?" Yi Futian asked her back. Shengguan Qiuya replied, nodding her head. "You can go first." "I'll wait and see," Yi Futian answered. Shengguan Qiuya did not hold back and actually walked right in. However, not long after, Shengguan Qiuya also emerged like everyone else. Her beautiful eyes contained a look of astonishment. "What is in there?" Yi Futian inquired. "Go take a look for yourself," Shengguan Qiuya replied, not telling Yi Futian what she saw. He also did not pursue the matter, waiting there quietly. As figures entered and emerged, no one managed to succeed. However, they had all been awed by something. When those who entered before saw the others emerge just like they had, they breathed sighs of relief. Most likely, no one would be able to retrieve this elixir. It was just as the island lord had said. If the Jiang clan's powerful existence were to come, only he may have a chance of retrieving the elixir. Finally, no one else entered into the crack. Island lord asked out loud, "Does anyone else want to go in to take a look?" No one responded. Just then, Futian stepped out and said, "I also wish to broaden my horizons." "Suit yourself," Island Lord replied. Her expression remained the same. She did not think much about it. Futian then stepped forward and entered into the crack in the ancient mountain. He directly passed through the mountain and entered a gigantic space. When Futian arrived on this side, he instantly sensed an extremely intimate aura. When he saw the scene before him, his eyes revealed a look of astonishment. Before him there was a tree. It was a gigantic divine tree with countless branches and leaves. This tree seemed to nurture all forms of paths, emanating many different types of auras of the Great Path. It was as though the tree could accommodate all things within it. Inside the ancient tree, the most powerful aura of the Great Path was the aura of the Great Path of Life. This was the ancient tree's original aura. What astonished Futian was that this gigantic ancient tree actually had a human shape. It was as though it was a humongous tree god. This human-shaped divine tree had a head, eyes, arms, body, as well as 2 legs. It completely resembled a human. Right then, a brilliant life aura was shining from the head of this human-shaped tree. There seemed to be an elixir there. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1935 Merging. Chapter 1935 Merging. Futian revealed a bizarre expression. The elixir was nurturing life? This ancient tree was born from the elixir? Although it was just a tree, Futian felt as though he was being watched. The ancient tree before him was even richer in spirit than the flowering tree he encountered before entering Eastern Deity Island. It was as though he was facing a person. The life aura contained within the ancient tree astonished him. Endless emerald green divine halos shone all around, sealing off this space. The swaying branches kept growing, blocking out the sun and the sky. It seemed to truly be a divine tree. It had a perfect way of life. Was this the power of the origin of the way of life? Futian thought to himself. The sense of familiarity grew stronger. The life spirit of the world tree within him swayed and began to stir. This was another object that caused his life spirit to stir. It was certainly an extremely precious item. Futian approached the tree. Yet in an instant, the branches and leaves that blocked out the sun and the sky descended upon him. They became countless vines and tendrils that instantly flooded around him. Divine light surged over Futian's figure. He tried to freeze the vines of the ancient tree, but he saw the emerald green divine halos above the ancient tree shine. Its vitality was overwhelming, immediately breaking through the power of the divine light as it continued towards Futian. Sword, will, lightning, and other powers of the Great Path burst forth from Futian, attempting to block off the vines. However, they were all useless. The branches and leaves seemed to be unable to decay. Their vitality was overwhelming to the point of making them immortal. Be it destruction or death, they could not corrupt the branches and leaves. With a swooshing sound, Futian's figure was completely tied up in an instant. He could not resist at all. When this power bound him, he did not have the ability to struggle at all. He frenziedly unleashed his aura of the Great Path, but he could not break free. At that moment, Futian understood what the others had been through. Like him, they must have been unable to offer up any resistance. They had all been bullied by a tree. The branches of the ancient tree wrapped him within them. Futian felt his body spinning. He then appeared before the divine tree. The head of the tree seemed to be staring at him. An object shone with brilliant divine light in its head. The power within the divine light was bestowing life to the divine tree. Swoosh! Futian heard high-pitched squeaks. The branches of the divine tree seemed to become razor-sharp. They were aimed at Futian, seemingly wanting to pierce through his body. Yi Futian knew that the situation was bad. The way of life in his body also burst forth at that instant. The divine halo of the world tree emanated from him. Currents of the great path enveloped the vast space. His figure suddenly became a frightening spiral that consumed the way of life of the tree. In just a split second, the surrounding way of life surged into his body. Inside his body, there was also a divine tree shining with a strange divine halo. It seemed ethereal, like a king among divine trees. It was staring back at the ancient tree outside. The ancient tree outside also sensed its presence. The two actually developed some form of resonance with each other. Swooshing sounds kept ringing in Yi Futian's ear as the branches frenziedly swept towards Yi Futian. The branches actually dove into Yi Futian's body, being drawn towards his aura, allowing themselves to be consumed by the aura. The elixir on the ancient tree released blinding divine light. From within the elixir that was merged with the divine tree, an illusory figure seemed to faintly appear. The figure's temperament was ethereal, as though he was a celestial being. Supreme Deity Donglai. Yi Futian revealed a strange look. Could it be that the absurd things that Shangguan Chuya previously told him were true? Yi Futian saw the light released by the elixir grow brighter and brighter. Frightening divine halos completely lit up the space within this domain of the great path. The emerald green divine light was like the light of life. He could hear a crisp sound, as though the elixir was shattering. It merged directly into the divine tree, and then continued to surge into Yi Futian's body, merging once again with the divine tree within him. Yi Futian greedily absorbed this power of the great path of life. He felt his life aura swell. It was still continuing to rise. His organs, meridians, and life force seemed to also grow stronger. He was full of life force. He could clearly sense that as his life force grew stronger, his blood, qi, and will were also strengthened. Life force was the source of human existence. As time passed slowly, both the divine tree as well the elixir contained within it disappeared, consumed by Yi Futian. The exuberant life aura within him made him feel as though he was filled with endless power. His temperament also went through some changes. Yet he could not describe what had changed exactly. Just then, a will suddenly surfaced within his mind. This caused him to be momentarily stunned. The illusory figure had directly appeared in his mind in the form of will. He was still ethereal, as though he was a celestial being. "Are you seeing your supreme deity Donglai?" Yi Futian asked as his will wavered. The other party replied, nodding his head. He continued, "Let down your will. I will let you know everything that you wish to know." "All right," Yi Futian answered. He was not on guard. The other party's will was weak and feeble. It was impossible for him to take anything from Yi Futian. Hence, Yi Futian was at ease to allow the other party's will to merge into his own. In an instant, countless images surfaced in his mind. They seemed to be images of Supreme Deity Donglai's legendary life. Of course, what was more precious was that Supreme Deity Donglai imparted everything he had learned into Yi Futian's will, including his vast knowledge in alchemy techniques. This made Yi Futian feel strange. He had just come in here to try his luck. He never imagined that he would not only consume the elixir, but also receive the lifelong teachings of Supreme Deity Donglai. This, from the looks of it, he was truly fortunate to stumble upon this. He did not know how the successor of Supreme Deity Donglai, the female island lord, would think of this. The elixir nurtured the life of the divine tree, and nourished the remaining will of Supreme Deity Donglai. Supreme Deity Donglai had wanted to utilize the elixir and the divine tree to remain immortal. Yet, his plans had all been wrecked by Yi Futian. "It is your good fortune to be able to come here. You can now be considered half a disciple of mine. I hope that you can take care of Eastern Deity Island." Supreme Deity Donglai directly imprinted this thought in Yi Futian's mind. Yi Futian nodded his head and answered solemnly, "Senior, rest assured. I will do whatever is within my power." The illusory figure nodded his head slightly. He then gradually turned blurrier until he completely disappeared, vanishing into thin air. At that moment, Supreme Deity Donglai was truly considered to have disappeared from the world. Yi Futian took a deep breath. He looked at the empty ancient mountain. All the power of the way of life here was no longer present. Right now, he still had another predicament to face. He did not know what the island lord would do to him. Futian turned around and headed outside. The people outside were all idly chatting to one another. They appeared exceptionally casual, as though they did not take this event to be a big issue anymore. When they saw Futian equally as disheveled as the rest, they only smiled, revealing understanding looks. Island Lord glanced over at Futian with her beautiful eyes. She then looked at the crowd and said, "Let's go." As she said this, she turned around and walked away. The rest followed her and left the place. After the crowd returned to the island, they were invited to rest on Eastern Deity Island. They could move around freely and also contemplate on whether or not they wanted to stay to cultivate on Eastern Deity Island. A palace was arranged for Futian's group to cultivate in. The place was elegant. Xia Qingyuan's beautiful eyes looked at Futian. Futian looked back at her and asked, "What are you looking at?" "You seem somewhat different," Xia Qingyuan replied. Futian was stunned. She could tell. "What seems different about me?" Futian inquired. Xia Qingyuan shook her head gently and said, "It's just a feeling." "Your senses are really sharp," Futian said with a smile. Xia Qingyuan looked at him. Futian then said, "The members of Eastern Deity Island should be coming to find me soon." When Xia Qingyuan heard Futian say this, she immediately understood. He must have had a different experience compared to other people when he was in the ancient mountain. Just as they were chatting, a group of silhouettes traversed across the sky. They quickly arrived outside their palace. One of the silhouettes said, "Bai Mu wishes to see Pavilion Master Yi. Goddess, please come in." Futian turned his head and said out loud. Xia Qingyuan also looked over in that direction. The members of Eastern Deity Island actually came. Bai Mu and her group immediately came up to Futian. She bowed slightly and said, "Island Lord invites Pavilion Master Yi to meet with her." "All right," Futian replied, nodding his head. He could not just leave Eastern Deity Island like that. He wouldn't be able to either. "Many thanks, Pavilion Master Yi." Bai Mu thanked him as she nodded. She then turned and headed off. Futian told Xia Qingyuan and the others, "Wait for me here." As he said this, he followed Bai Mu alone and came to the residence of the island lord. When Futian arrived, there were only a few people present. Aside from the island lord, there were a few figures with very powerful auras. This alarmed Bai Mu and the other goddesses. What was going to happen? "Greetings, island lord," Futian said as he bowed slightly. Island lord acknowledged his greeting by nodding her head. She then said to Bai Mu and the other goddesses, "You may all step down." Understood. Although Bai Mu and the rest were curious, they still stepped down and left the place. There were only a few members, and the island lord left in this place together with Futian. A formless pressure landed on Futian. This peerless island lord released a terrifying pressure of the great path that enveloped Futian. "What happened to the divine tree as well as the elixir?" she interrogated in a cold tone. "I happened to obtain them by chance. They have already merged into my body," Futian responded. The female island lord had waited until now to meet with him privately. She must not want other people to know about this. From the looks of it, he should be quite safe. The other party would not do anything to him. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1936, The Second Island Lord. Chapter 1936, The Second Island Lord. The female island lord stared at Futian. The coercion of the Great Path was still strong. Had it been integrated by him? "What did you get?" she asked. "Elixir, the life force of the Great Path." As soon as Futian's voice fell, a most sacred emerald green divine brilliance gleamed. His body seemed to have been transformed into a divine tree with countless branches and leaves spread out, swaying in this space. The great path of life was extremely majestic and vibrant. Yi Futian's body was also filled with radiant green divine brilliance, with a most powerful vitality. What else? The other continued to ask him, her gaze fixed on him. Yi Futian looked into those deep eyes and responded, "And I have inherited everything from the supreme deity Donglai." As soon as his voice fell, an invisible pressure of the great path enveloped this area. Not just the female island lord, but the few cultivators next to her also emitted an extremely powerful aura. Supreme deity Donglai was the belief of Eastern Deity Island. Even though he had fallen for many years, the people on Eastern Deity Island knew that he hadn't completely disappeared. They had always hoped that he would continue to exist forever, so that one day he might wake up one way or another. But now it was inherited by Yi Futian. He's gone. A terrible power of the great path surged over the woman, and it seemed rather cold. He's gone, Yi Futian responded frankly. Supreme deity Donglai proclaimed that I could be counted as half a disciple of his, and asked me to look after Eastern Deity Island in the future. You, look after Eastern Deity Island, said the other while looking at Yi Futian. I can't now, Yi Futian responded. But does the island lord think it will not be possible even in the future? The woman fell silent when she heard Yi Futian's words. She had been watching Yi Futian's performance. Even with Jiang Jiuming present, Yi Futian was still the one with the most outstanding performance in Eastern Deity Island. So the movement of the flowering tree was also because of you. She continued, and Yi Futian nodded, did not deny it. Who are you? There is no major clan with the last name Yi in the surrounding continents. The female island lord stared at Yi Futian. She was a little suspicious of Yi Futian's identity, and wondered whether he was coming for the elixir just like Jiang Jiuming. Pavilion Master of Dongyuan Pavilion, Yi Futian responded. Dongyuan Pavilion can't tolerate the likes of you. The other responded bluntly. Yi Futian gave a look at the people next to her, which caught her attention. Did he mean to have her dismiss her people before he would say more? You may go now, the island lord commanded. Several people glanced at Yi Futian coldly, then turned to leave. The island lord looked at Yi Futian and said, You can spill it now. Sure enough, just as she had thought, this man wasn't so simple. His past was extraordinary, or else he wouldn't request a private audience with her. An invisible power of the great path enveloped this area and sealed it. Yi Futian looked at the island lord. Since I have inherited everything from the supreme deity Donglai, naturally I am aware of its past. As he said, I am indeed half of a disciple to him. I can't cut off my relationship with the Eastern Deity Island. Therefore, I can tell the island lord my secrets to demonstrate my sincerity, but I also hope that the island lord will keep my secrets for me. Of course. The other nodded. I come from the original realm, said Yi Futian. Impossible. The island lord was surprised. How could you possibly come from original realm with this kind of cultivation? Obviously, she had heard of the original realm. After all, Eastern Deity Island was once prosperous. Her father was a top figure. They had talked about it. Whether the island lord believes it or not, I did come from the original realm. It is a fact, Yi Futian continued, while the beautiful eyes of the woman in front of him fixed on him. Although she knew of the original realm, to the vast majority of the forces in Divine Prefecture, the original realm only existed as a myth. And the young man in front of her came from the original realm. Even if I believe you, is this any secret? The island lord said to Yi Futian. Back then, I was hunted by the top powers of the Divine Prefecture in the original realm, including powers such as the Holy Land of Taichu, Yi Futian continued, and the other revealed a look of surprise. She had heard of Holy Land of Taichu, even if it never had any exchanges with Eastern Deity Island, but as one of the top forces in Divine Prefecture, she knew of its existence. Would such forces hunt Yi Futian down? My real name is Yi Futian. Yi Liunian is just a pseudonym. In the original realm, due to some circumstances, I was targeted by the forces in the original realm, and those of the lower worlds in the Divine Prefecture. So I fled to Divine Prefecture, Yi Futian said. How did you manage to escape with your realm? The other asked. Princess Donghuang didn't want to see me die, Yi Futian responded. Princess Donghuang? The female island lord was already starting to believe in Yi Futian's story. But the more she listened, the more she felt it was implausible. She felt it's almost like a dream. A man of Lower Runhuang realm came to Eastern Deity Island for trial and obtained the opportunity of the Great Path. However, the characters and forces that he mentioned were inaccessible to those on Eastern Deity Island. How could this not make her feel a little surreal? Look at it yourself. Yi Futian shot a thought from his brow chakra toward the center of her brow chakra. She did not refuse and saw scenes appearing before her eyes. The battle in the original realm was also displayed. After watching, the female island lord's aura fluctuated slightly, staring at the man in front of her. This was a veritable genius. In the original realm, he had come into contact with the top powers and was valued by Princess Donghuang. No wonder such an extremely talented person traversed and dominated all of Eastern Deity Island, inherited the opportunity of the Great Path, and seized the elixir. Am I sincere enough? Yi Futian asked while the other still looked at him. Why tell me so much? The other asked him. These were Yi Futian's secrets. There was no need to tell her all of them. I inherited the elixir in the inheritance of the supreme deity Donglai. I could be considered as half of his heir. If I don't convince the island lord of my talent, it may put me at a disadvantage. On the contrary, if the island lord sees all this, the conclusion may very well be the opposite. Yi Futian responded frankly. He learned everything that Eastern Deity Island had experienced through Supreme Deity Donglai. Eastern Deity Island was now in desperate need of power. The reason why it was using the opportunity of the Great Path to attract talented men from outside. However, no matter how they recruit, even if Eastern Deity Island's strength increased, there would still be an upper limit. As long as Eastern Deity Island failed to produce a major figure, the limitation would always be there. Therefore, this could be the man who will give hope to Eastern Deity Island. Having inherited everything from Supreme Deity Donglai, with the promise to look after Eastern Deity Island, he would not mind help coming from Eastern Deity Island. You go back first. The island lord thought for a moment and said to Yi Futian. Her thoughts were mixed up, and she hadn't sorted them out yet. Very well. Yi Futian nodded slightly and left. Long after he left, the island lord of Eastern Deity Island still stared at his faded figure in a daze. Yi Futian from the original realm. Yi Lionian, the pavilion master of Dongyuan Pavilion. She had been recruiting genius talents for Eastern Deity Island. Finally, on this day, a genius had come, one that even the daughter of the great emperor had appreciated. Yi Futian's talent was undoubted. This was someone who could make the flowering tree run wild, allowing the divine tree to blend into the divine body. Someone that Zifeng was willing to follow in cultivation. No matter how she looked at it, Yi Futian was the best candidate for Eastern Deity Island. But was he reliable? Previously at the banquet, Yi Futian casually gave out the refined thunder mastering pellets to those around him. He had performed well on Eastern Deity Island before. His character was gentle and erudite, but ruthless toward the enemy. Perhaps this was destined to send Yi Futian to Eastern Deity Island. Island Lord. At this moment, a group of people landed next to Island Lord of Eastern Deity Island. Their eyes were full of doubts and questions. What did the white-haired man talk about with the Island Lord? From today onwards, Yi Lionian is the second Island Lord of Eastern Deity Island, and you will do all you can to provide full assistance to him. However, this matter is only known to you and cannot be publicized. His status is the same as mine, said the woman. Everyone around was a little surprised, their eyes on her. Was this to confirm the white-haired Ren Huang as the heir of Eastern Deity Island? Even if he had gotten the inheritance of Supreme Deity Donglai, should a decision be made so quickly? Island Lord, do we need to discuss this matter further? Someone asked. No, I have made up my mind, so it is decided. The Island Lord's tone was determined, and everyone was a little concerned, unaware of what the two had talked about. But they knew the Island Lord, an extremely outstanding leader, whose action was always swift. Since she had already made the decision, they would not question her. They all nodded in response and left. Second Island Lord of Eastern Deity Island? Yi Futian didn't know any of this. After he returned, Zifeng asked him, What did Sister Island Lord say to you? Nothing, just concerned for me, Yi Futian smiled. Concerned for you? Zifeng's beautiful eyes glanced at him with a look of contempt. This island lord did care for anyone, much less a man. Yi Futian nodded. Although you plan to follow me to cultivate, you may still be on Eastern Deity Island often. Zifeng didn't quite understand it, and Yi Futian didn't bother to explain further. In his opinion, such a choice was actually straightforward. As smart as the island lord of Eastern Deity Island, she would make the best judgment. When faced with a win-win option, no one would choose to lose. When are we leaving? Beigong Shuang came over and asked Yi Futian. Leave. Yi Futian looked at Beigong Shuang and said, Eastern Deity Island's fine wines and delicacies are all great. Why leave? Wasn't it nice to stay a few more days and enjoy the feast? You are not leaving? Beigong Shuang looked confused, didn't quite understand. Yi Futian smiled and didn't say anything more. Of course he wouldn't leave. From now on, this would be like his own backyard. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1937, Conferred. Chapter 1937, Conferred Eastern Deity Island. Those who planned to enter the core island gradually left. Several others chose to join Eastern Deity Island, preparing to stay there to cultivate. Yi Futian did not leave, staying on Eastern Deity Island to continue his cultivation. At Eastern Deity Island, delicacies were provided every day, with Goddess Baimu from Eastern Deity Island personally waiting on him daily. Many cultivators were a little unhappy with the situation, saying that Baimu was almost like Yi Futian's servant girl. They thought that Yi Futian must have agreed to join Eastern Deity Island to cultivate. But even if he had outstanding talents, there was no need to degrade Baimu like this. On Eastern Deity Island, Baimu's talent was one of the most outstanding. An empress who was so out of this world, now serving Yi Futian every day, made many felt quite odd. If the two were path companions, they would understand it. But Baimu didn't say anything, nor felt that she was being wronged. The order of the island lord must have its own reasons. As for the matter regarding the second island lord, it was not publicized by Eastern Deity Island, and only a few key people knew about it. Even the goddesses of Eastern Deity Island did not know anything. Of course, Yi Futian himself didn't know it either, but judging from the attitude of everyone, many things were becoming clear to him. On this day, in a hall on Eastern Deity Island, Baimu and a goddess Huang stood there, respectfully facing the peerless empress in front of him, the island lord of Eastern Deity Island. Baimu, how are you getting along with Pavilion Master Yi these past few days? The island lord asked. Very well. Baimu nodded slightly. Pavilion Master Yi is easygoing and easy to get along with. The island lord nodded slightly and glanced at that goddess Huang. Her name was Huang Yan, a direct disciple of the island lord herself. She was extremely talented and was regarded very highly. Seeing that her master now looked at her, Huang Yan said, Master, there has been some gossip on the island these past few days. It's true that Pavilion Master Yi is extremely talented. Although he has entered the Eastern Deity Island to cultivate, is it necessary to give him such grand treatments? The island lord glanced at her and said, Huang Yan, you can leave for the moment now. Huang Yan was stunned by this reply. With some puzzlements in her eyes, she nodded and replied, Yes, master. After that, she left, not knowing what she said that had displeased her master. Neither did Baimu. She was the only one left. Baimu, what do you think of Pavilion Master Yi? The island lord asked. His talent is unparalleled. Baimu responded. Even Jiang Jioming from the ancient royal family is not necessarily more outstanding than him. Whether inside or outside of Eastern Deity Island, he had demonstrated unparalleled talent. The island lord nodded. Do you want to cultivate with him? Baimu was stunned. A strange look appeared in her beautiful eyes as she lowered her head slightly. Master, Pavilion Master Yi already has a path companion. Not as path companion, just to follow him in cultivation. The island lord knew that Baimu had misunderstood her meaning, and continued. Baimu looked up at her master in surprise. Did her master really want her to follow Yi Futian and serve him? Just how important was Yi Futian? Baimu will obey master's order, Baimu replied softly. It's not an order. I'm simply asking if you are willing. If you are not, I won't force you. What I need is someone who truly wanted to follow him in cultivation, and not just because I ordered it. He is here because you recommended him, so you know him the best. That's why I am asking for your opinion, the island lord continued. Baimu looked pensive when she heard her master's words. Judging from what her master said, she held Yi Futian in higher regard than she had previously thought. Baimu thought of how she had gotten to know Yi Futian. First, it was the battle between him and Jun Qiuyan. Later in Eastern Deity Island, when he disabled Jun Qiuyan. At the time, she felt that Yi Futian was a little too impulsive, and should not made such a move against Jun Qiuyan. Things could be very dangerous to him in the future, when he's in the outside world. However, now she realized that she might have overthought the matter. In Eastern Deity Island, Yi Futian was able to have an effect on her master, to the point of assigning her to follow him. If the Jun family ever wanted to harm Yi Futian, it would be impossible for Eastern Deity Island not to get involved. I am willing. Baimu nodded and bowed. Perhaps following Yi Futian in cultivation was also a fated encounter. Let's see what it might bring. The island lord nodded slightly and said, In that case, I will tell you the truth. I have made Yi Futian the second island lord of Eastern Deity Island. The future of Eastern Deity Island may be tied to him. Do you understand? Baimu's beautiful eyes showed some surprise as she raised her head to look at her master. Elixir was obtained by him, and he had also gotten the inheritance of my father, the island lord continued. Her every word made Baimu's heart tremble. Indeed, she had underestimated him. No wonder the master wanted her to follow him around. At this time, the island lord took out a sacred ancient decree, which was filled with the powerful aura of the Great Path. The ancient decree flew toward Baimu and hovered in front of her. When Baimu laid eyes on the decree, her eyes betrayed her emotions, clearly recognizing it. Seeing it is like seeing me. Take it. Whenever you need it, you may use it. In addition, I will confer you as the goddess of Eastern Deity Island. The voice of the island lord caused an uneasiness inside Baimu. The bestowing of the ancient decree, and conferring her as the goddess of Eastern Deity Island. All these just so that she would follow Yi Futian in cultivation. Most people on Eastern Deity Island don't know what happened today. It is only for your own knowledge, so do not disclose it to the others. Yes, master. Baimu nodded. It seemed that master chose her this time, and entrusted her with an important task. Go, said the island lord. Baimu bowed slightly, then turned to leave. There was a great disturbance in her heart that was difficult to calm down for a long while. The island lord of Eastern Deity Island watched the other leave, and sat there quietly. Yi Futian had inherited everything from her father, and obtained the elixir. Apart from not being the actual descendant of her father by blood, he was more of an heir in every way, so she bestowed him the title as the second island lord. She was not hungry for power. Only strength could bring power. Otherwise, it was as fleeting as the clouds. If one day Yi Futian could reach a certain height, she wouldn't mind Yi Futian inheriting Eastern Deity Island. Although Zifeng was following him, she didn't think it was enough. Yi Futian was not from Eastern Deity Island, and would not have a sense of belonging regarding Eastern Deity Island. She needed to strengthen that feeling for him consistently. Since she had already approved of Yi Futian, she needed to do everything to bind him. Therefore, she decided to send Baimu to take care of him. She thought of choosing Huang Yan, but Huang Yan was a proud one. She probably would never serve Yi Futian willingly, so she decided to give this task to Baimu. As for this business about the goddess, Huang Yan had to stand down. If there was no Yi Futian, the official position for the goddess should have gone to Huang Yan. Her eyes focused outside and said clearly, Today, Disciple Baimu is officially designated as the goddess of Eastern Deity Island, ranking first among all the disciples, and her orders are to be obeyed by all. This voice came out and spread throughout Eastern Deity Island. In an instant, It resounded above the entire island. Baimu, who had just left, stopped in her tracks, but she did not look back. At this moment, she felt no joy or excitement. On the contrary, all this meant more responsibilities, and she still had a long way to go. She was not quite deserving of the position of goddess at present, and now the master had bestowed such position to her. She had to work on making herself worthy. Huang Yin was in another place. She looked back at the ancient temple from which she had just came out, her beautiful eyes fixated there, with confusion and doubts in her eyes. Conferring the title to Baimu as the goddess of Eastern Deity Island. But why? Was it because of what happened in the ancient temple before? Because of what she said? She was a little puzzled and couldn't understand. She was not jealous, only that she could not understand why Master had made such a decision. In all aspects, she was more outstanding than Baimu. It was not just her, but everyone on Eastern Deity Island was looking in the direction of the voice, and their hearts were slightly disturbed. Baimu had been conferred as the goddess. Then what about Huang Yin? Why did the island lord choose to confer the title to Baimu at this time? By order of the island lord, congratulations to the goddess. At this moment, another voice resounded throughout Eastern Deity Island. It was a powerful figure in Eastern Deity Island. By order of the island lord, congratulations to the goddess. After that, there were other voices that were heard in response to the island lord of Eastern Deity Island. Soon, these voices flooded the island, resonating with the world, as if it was the will of the great path that must be accepted by those who heard it. In the palace where Futian was, he raised his head slightly as the voices fell, and their sounds still lingered. Did this matter have anything to do with him? Emperor Yi. At this time, Shengguan Qiuya walked over this way and said to him, Baimu has been conferred as the goddess. Wasn't Baimu the one who invited you to Eastern Deity? Yi Futian nodded. I didn't expect goddess Baimu to have such luck, Shengguan Qiuya marveled. Just as she was speaking, a figure in the distance came in this direction. Shengguan Qiuya was taken aback when she saw who it was. Just as she was speaking of Baimu, here she came. Baimu's appearance surprised her. Baimu had just been conferred as the goddess. Even though there was no official ceremony, shouldn't she be with the island lord at a time like this? No matter what, this was the last place she should be at this time. Pavilion Master Yi. Baimu landed and nodded at Yi Futian with a smile. Congratulations to the goddess. Yi Futian smiled. Congratulations to the goddess. Shengguan Qiuya did the same. Thank you. Baimu responded with a smile. Goddess has just been conferred. How is it that you are already here? Shengguan Qiuya asked with some doubt, but Yi Futian didn't. Instinctively, he felt that this matter might have something to do with him. On this trip to Eastern Deity Island, Pavilion Master Yi demonstrated unparalleled talent. Master conferred the title of goddess on me so I could follow Pavilion Master Yi in cultivation. For many years, I have been cultivating in Eastern Deity Island, and it's time that I cultivate outside of the island. I wonder if I will have the opportunity to cultivate with Pavilion Master Yi in the outside world? Baimu spoke with a very soft voice, and her tone was very polite. Hearing her words, Yi Futian was assured of his speculation. It seemed that the island lord had made her decision, so that a goddess would follow him in cultivation. Indeed, Baimu was conferred as the goddess of Eastern Deity Island because of him. On the side, Shengguan Qiuya looked shocked. In such a circumstance, how could she fail to understand that for Baimu, who had just been named as the goddess of Eastern Deity Island, to follow Yi Futian out in the world to cultivate, implied that a goddess was to be Yi Futian's path companion? Obviously, her understanding was a little off. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1938. Attainment of the Divine Flame. Chapter 1938. Attainment of the Divine Flame. Yi Futian's understanding was different from that of Shengguan Xiuya. For the island lord of Eastern Deity Island to confer the title of goddess, just to let that goddess follow him in cultivation, was all but acknowledged his status. However, for a goddess to follow him might also be a way to keep tabs on him. However, he had a good impression of Baimu. They had picked the right person, so he had no reason to refuse her. He nodded and said, "If the goddess doesn't object, I would have no reason to decline." "Then it's settled. From now on, I will cultivate in this palace. If Pavilion Master Yi has any instructions, just let me know," Baimu said. Yi Futian nodded and began to understand the intention of the island lord. She wanted to use Baimu to connect him to Eastern Deity Island. "Thank you, goddess." Yi Futian smiled and nodded once he understood the intention, while Shengguan Xiuya beside him blinked and wondered if that was all. He was not humble at all, shameless to the extreme. Shengguan Xiuya still thought that Eastern Deity Island was using Baimu to win Yi Futian over. She didn't know that Yi Futian had already inherited from the supreme deity Donglai, swallowed the elixir of Eastern Deity Island, and was now the second island lord of Eastern Deity Island. "Pavilion Master, you need not address me as goddess anymore. Just call me by my name," Baimu said. "Very well," Yi Futian nodded. "Baimu, Eastern Deity Island should have a place for alchemy, right?" Baimu nodded. Eastern Deity Island was created by Supreme Deity Donglai, who was a master-level alchemist. Eastern Deity Island was steeped in alchemy, and many of its people were experts in the art of alchemy. "Are you good at it?" Yi Futian asked. Baimu shook her head. "I am not gifted in alchemy. Alchemy requires a strong comprehension of the Great Path. Any good alchemist could induce movements from the flowering tree. So, a powerful alchemist must have a strong talent for cultivation?" Yi Futian asked, and Baimu nodded. This was also the reason why a powerful alchemist was extremely rare. For a person with outstanding talent, it was enough to improve his strength through cultivation. There was no need to be distracted by alchemy. If so, I should have great potential for it. When you have time, you can take me to observe the alchemy in action here. Maybe I have a hidden talent in alchemy, Yi Futian said with a smile. Baimu knew the inside story and understood the reason behind Yi Futian's request to observe. Having inherited everything from Supreme Deity Donglai, Yi Futian now had a real chance to become a top master alchemist, provided that he was willing to spend time and energy on it. "When will Eastern Deity Island be closed?" Yi Futian asked. "It will be closed in 3 days. By then, all the cultivators will leave Eastern Deity Island," Baimu said, as Yi Futian nodded in acknowledgement. Once Eastern Deity Island closed, the news would be spread to the outside, and all of the Penglai continent would know what happened to Jun Shiyan. Of course, this did not rule out the possibility that the other party already knew of it, and this possibility was very high. After all, there were indeed such magical treasures in the world of cultivation. He and Xiaqing Yuan owned a Zimu Yuanyang mirror, and it was highly probable that the news had already leaked out. But Jun Xiuyan was in his hands, so the cultivators from the Jun family should not dare to provoke him. However, now was the time to consider the next step. Before that, they must first collect the divine fire of Wudong. "Zifeng, shall we go to Wudong Island now?" Yi Futian said to the phoenix that was not far away. Obviously, the two had reached an agreement to let Yi Futian take ownership of the divine fire of Wudong. "Yes," Zifeng nodded, and the two walked away together. Shengguan Xiuya, Baimu, and the others looked at them in amazement. What were they going to do on Wudong Island? "Wait for the little condor." A voice came from behind. Condor-sama spread his wings to catch up. If he didn't, he would be left behind. Before long, they appeared on Wudong Island together. Although Zifeng was not there, the Wudong divine tree was still on the island. No one had been able to take away the Wudong divine flame. This was a divine fire, and it was a divine fire of the great path conceived by the phoenix. It was possible to leverage its power to cultivate, but impossible to refine it for one's own possession. At least there was no one strong enough, yet in Eastern Deity Island to do so. However, Yi Futian claimed he had a way. Leave Wudong Island immediately. Zifeng swooped down. Her red dress was brilliant, and a sudden burst of overwhelming pressure bloomed from her. An illusion of the divine phoenix appeared on her body, sheltering the sky and the sun. The divine flame enveloped the entire Wudong Island, so that all the Wudong trees on the island swayed, as traces of divine flames diffused into the atmosphere. In just an instant, the temperature of Wudong Island suddenly rose. With the Wudong divine tree as the center, wisps of elusive flames lingered. The cultivators on the island glanced at Zifeng and knew that this was probably the master of Wudong Island, and they retreated toward the void. Yi Futian and the little condor swooped down and landed next to the Wudong divine tree. Yi Futian walked under the Wudong tree and sat down in a cross-legged pose. Zifeng was suspended above the Wudong divine tree, quietly watching Yi Futian, wondering how he could take away the divine fire of Wudong from the tree. At this moment, she faintly perceived traces of invisible air currents that came from Yi Futian, covering the Wudong divine tree. At this moment, the power of the flaming great path above the divine tree was constantly flowing toward him. Caution flashed across Zifeng's beautiful eyes, and she became a little more serious. At this moment, she was faintly aware that an independent area of the great path had appeared in this space, and the divine tree was shrouded within. In this area, there seemed to be invisible, ancient tree branches and leaves spreading, turning into the currents of the great path, infiltrated into the Wudong divine tree, so that Yi Futian's body and the Wudong divine tree became one, continuing to swallow and absorb the light of the divine flame. The terrible divine brilliance was shining, and an indescribably blazing aura permeated the atmosphere. Divine Wudong tree turned into the color of the flame, as if a golden divine fire was burning had rendered Yi Futian's entire body extremely radiant. Divine flame. Little Condor retreated into the void. He couldn't possibly withstand the power of this divine fire. But even the power of the divine fire was still being absorbed by Yi Futian little by little, which caused the surprised look on Zifeng's face. Unless he could resonate with divine flame, anyone else who came in contact with the divine flame, such as herself, would be incinerated body and soul. This was also why the Wudong divine flame was still here, though there was no one guarding it, because no one was able to take it away. But why was Yi Futian not hurt by it? Yi Futian's body was lit up with the divine brilliance of the flame, sparkled without ceasing. His entire body was radiant. The divine fire flowed about his body, also under great coercion. But even so, he didn't stop what he was doing. The strength of the shadow power that he encountered in the Shadow Realm Center was far more terrifying than this Wudong divine flame. Yet it was absorbed and swallowed by him. Today it would be the same with this Wudong divine flame. It was precisely because of the experience he had in the Shadow Realm that he could be this confident. After a long while, the divine glory on the divine Wudong tree gradually dimmed, and the divine light inside Yi Futian's body became even brighter. It was as if his entire body was bathed in the divine fire. He sat there cross-legged in cultivation, nor did he move. At the same time, the flame aura on the entire Wudong Island became weakened, and the power of the great path gradually dissipated on this island. It had been swallowed. Zifeng stared at Yi Futian below. Although she had been watching, she still did not understand how Yi Futian had done it. She could only feel that Yi Futian was an expert at a mysterious power, and that this power was strong enough to tolerate the divine fire of Wudong. After some time had passed, the brilliance of the divine flame flowed over Yi Futian's body. He stood up and exhaled a long breath, which actually turned into a frightful hot current. Lifting his head, Yi Futian looked at Zifeng and said with a smile, "It's done. Where is the divine flame?" Zifeng looked at Yi Futian, her eyes wide. Didn't he say that he would help her to take it? Where was the divine flame? Could it be pocketed by this guy? Don't worry. Yi Futian saw Zifeng's expression and said with a smile, "Let's go back." As he finished speaking, he left in a flash, leaving behind an empty Wudong Island. After they left, many came to this side, and someone asked, "Who was that man?" Yi Liunyan. He had already destroyed many opportunities of the Great Path, and they were all monopolized by him. Later, He breached the chessboard matrix and entered the core island. Now it seems that he may have been invited to cultivate on Eastern Deity Island, and once again monopolize the opportunity on Wudong Island. How heartless, someone said. It seemed that Yi Futian was already quite famous on Eastern Deity Island. Yi Liunian, the pavilion master of Dongyuan Pavilion, I have heard about him. He disabled Jun Qiuyan of his cultivation, slaughtered hundreds of cultivators from the Jun family of Penglai continent. Even cultivators of the 8th realm couldn't escape fast enough. He is a ruthless man. Who knows what will happen if he goes into the outside world? Someone next to him added. It seemed that everyone knew all that had happened on Eastern Deity Island in the past few days. After Yi Futian returned to Core Island, he continued to enjoy life, served daily with fine wine and delicacies, with more than one beauty by his side. Not only him but even those who came with him, such as Emperor Helian and Beigong Ao, were all enjoying the most luxurious lifestyle. He even asked Bai Mu to get him some magical pellets on account of cultivation, and shared them with those who were the closest to him. Sometimes he would even go and cultivate in alchemy. Shangguan Qiuya watched all this, and her thoughts were tangled. Even though Yi Futian's talent was outstanding, and now he had entered Eastern Deity Island to cultivate, was there really a need for Eastern Deity Island to treat him so well? Moreover, the life that this guy led in Eastern Deity Island was practically like that of a king, perfect beyond words. Time seemed to go by very quickly. Finally, on this day, the journey to Eastern Deity Island was over. Eastern Deity Island invited several other geniuses who were on the island to stay and continue to cultivate there. At the same time, Eastern Deity Island opened up, and those cultivators who came for trials left successively. Some were happy, and some were sad. But when the gates of Eastern Deity Island were opened, the whole of Penglai continent was shaken. A battle occurred on Eastern Deity Island, which affected several top forces in Penglai continent. Among them, many cultivators of the Jun family were slaughtered, and the great loss they suffered included their young master, Jun Qiuyan, who lost his cultivation. This news caused a great sensation in an instant, so much so that even a mighty army descended on Penglai Deity region. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1939. What a good person. Chapter 1939. What a good person. Eastern Deity Island, Alchemy Area. Yi Futian sat cross-legged in front of an alchemy cauldron. His full head of long silver hair glimmered under the glow of the flames. With a bright sheen on his hair, he was like a fallen deity. The alchemy cauldron in front of him floated in midair. Flames of the way enveloped the cauldron and entered it, setting the inside on fire as well. From within the cauldron came waves of fragrance from elixirs. Threads of flames of the way seeped into the alchemy cauldron, causing continuous transformations inside the cauldron. Both his hands were busy forming seals. In the cauldron, an ethereal silhouette seemed to appear and control everything that was happening inside. To refine elixirs, one had to send his spiritual energy into the cauldron to carefully control every step in the refining process. Thus, anyone with a low level of cultivation would not be able to refine powerful elixirs. After some time, the alchemy cauldron emanated a bright divine light of the great path. An exquisite pill was forming within, and a loud rumble resonated out from the alchemy cauldron. It's more or less ready. Yi Futian's white hair suddenly fluttered. He slapped his palm on the cauldron, and a beam of light shot out. The cauldron lid opened, and an elixir in the form of a pill flew out. When Yi Futian saw the pill, he hesitated a moment, and his face revealed a grim expression. Although the pill levitating in the air emanated radiance of the great path, and exuded an extremely strong aura of the great path, its physical appearance was weird and ugly. It looked just like an irregular and deformed stone, and not at all like an elixir. Blunder! Yi Futian heard several people nearby whisper as they turned their gaze towards him. What an embarrassment! While this was his first time officially practicing alchemy, he had tried quite a few times before. And yet the elixir that he refined was still this ugly. Seeing him, the alchemy masters of the Eastern Deity Island were rendered speechless. How could this be the prodigy alchemist that the Island Lord found for them? Perhaps the Island Lord wanted them to guide Yi Futian with the hopes that he would one day become a powerful alchemy master. My young friend, don't lose heart. You have already done well to be able to refine an elixir successfully on your first try. It isn't important what color it is, a Runhuang said with a smile. Yes, its color is not crucial, and neither is its shape, another person said. Yi Futian nearly couldn't stay there any longer. What else was important then? I've suddenly remembered that I still have something on. I'll leave first, Yi Futian said aloud, and then scurried away, with Bai Mu following behind him. After they left, the others started giggling. It seems like the one chosen by the Island Lord still has a long way to go. Alchemy will not be that simple, an old man said as he stroked his beard. It seemed that they were all in good spirits after seeing Yi Futian in such a state. This was to be expected. The Island Lord had Bai Mu bring Yi Futian over, and allowed him to try his hand at refining elixirs with any materials he wanted to use. Such special treatment had them speechless with shock. It was his first time refining elixirs, and he also used the best ingredients. What was the outcome? Look at the elixir he refined. With this color, can it even be consumed? Everyone walked forward, and instantly they all laughed. Who dares to try it? How about you? Oh no, thank you. You can have it instead. The people at the sides refused. They walked up to the front, and drew the elixir pill out from the cauldron. Instantly, an intense wave of elixir fragrance washed over them. Although the elixir looked strange, its aura was certainly not weak. This contrast puzzled them greatly. After carefully examining the aura of the great path contained within the pill, a few people's expressions changed. It seems all right. I'll give it a try, someone said aloud. It's such an ugly elixir. Let me take one for the team instead, another person from the side also said. The people behind let out a puzzled expression. What was going on? Didn't they say they didn't dare take the elixir just moments ago? Let me try, another person said. However, while they were talking, the person holding on to the elixir swallowed it in one gulp. Everyone else was stunned when they saw this. How shameless. After swallowing the pill, a majestic aura of life seeped out from the person's body. Since he was not well versed in the great path of life, so whatever that was happening must be due to the effect of the elixir. A glorious life force shrouded his body, boosting his vitality unceasingly. It was as though a change was occurring throughout his entire body, and his aura became stronger. At this moment, his white hair turned black, and the wrinkles on his face faded a little. His skin became smoother, and it was as though he was becoming younger. Everyone had a shocked expression on their faces, especially those who saw the miraculous changes occurring in the person. They were all astonished. A short while later, the middle-level Renhuang seemed to have been reborn. He looked like he became younger by a few decades, and his aura seemed to emanate strongly. Ha ha ha. The old man laughed aloud, seeming to be full of energy. His voice also seemed full of strength, and said aloud, "The island lord has great foresight indeed. Our young friend Yi is an alchemy prodigy." Everyone was staring with their mouth agape. Just who was it who asked if anyone dared to consume the elixir just moments ago? What a cunning old man. They were greatly frustrated with themselves, bitter that they acted too slowly. "What grade is it?" someone asked. "It is a perfect grade elixir, level 5 pill of the Great Path," the old man replied aloud. The people who heard him nearly wanted to vomit blood. A perfect grade level 5 pill of the Great Path had the efficacy of a normal level 7 elixir. No wonder it could restore him to youth. The hue is unimportant, and neither is the shape. In alchemy, the most important thing is the level of elixir produced. The old man chuckled. Our young friend Yi is indeed a prodigy. He isn't bounded by rigid rules, and takes the road not taken by others, forming his own style. He spent all his effort on maximizing the level of the elixir, and disregarded the opinions of others. It is so rare to see someone of such strong will. This old man admires him indeed. Hearing the old man bragging, every one of them stared with their mouths agape. This was way too. What are you all looking at? As alchemists, you all have the title but don't have the ability to back it up. You only focus on the elixir's physical appearance, and pay little attention to the fundamentals of the elixir itself. You even look down on the elixir refined by Renhuang Yi. Only this old man appreciated his work, and thus consumed it. However, seeing this discrepancy in ability, I must also reflect properly. In terms of his competence in the way of alchemy, he is eligible to be this old man's mentor. I shall go visit him now. As he finished, he strode with large steps, and like a meteor, he sped out of the area, and went to look for Yi Futian. The crowd who remained behind looked at his shrinking silhouette with mouths agape. How shameless can this old man be? Someone pointed at his shrinking back and scolded angrily. How can such a shameless person exist in the world? The rest of the people were also infuriated. This was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. He was too shameless. After cursing their hearts out, someone asked, "So are we going?" "I have something else on, so I'll take my leave first," someone said. "I also have something else, so I'll leave you all on your own," another person said. The person who was cursing the most aggressively became the one to run the fastest. The person who posed the question just now was a little stunned. In the blink of an eye, everyone had fled. "Shameless," he shouted angrily, and then followed behind everyone else as he strode away. Everyone who claimed to have something else to do headed in the same direction. Thus, on this day, the pavilion in which Yi Futian was living was especially bustling, causing many people to stare with their mouths agape. The alchemy masters who were normally arrogant were all looking for Renhuang Yi, and their attitudes could even be said to be one of reverence. The Bai Mu, who was in the pavilion, saw the arrival of the alchemy masters, and was also speechless. What in the world happened? "We are all here to pay a visit to our young friend Yi," someone said. "Does he have some spare time now?" Pavilion Master Yi was just about to go out for a walk, Bai Mu replied. "Is there anything you need from Pavilion Master Yi?" She was still confused. What was this scenario? Nothing of great importance, actually. It's just about refining elixirs. We would like to discuss things with him a little more, someone said. Bai Mu let out a puzzled expression. Did they want to discuss things about alchemy with Yi Futian? Little did they know that Yi Futian was just a low-level Renhuang when he managed to refine a perfect grade mid-level pill of the Great Path. He had already surpassed the vast majority of them, which was an impressive feat. Yi Futian had just started learning alchemy. In the future, wouldn't it be easy for him to refine high-level elixirs? It would be effortless for him. Even though they were alchemy masters, they were also practitioners. Therefore, elixirs were extremely important to them as well. Just now, the old man gained a lot of benefits after taking the pill of the Great Path made by Futian. Preparing for your visit had me quite nervous. A voice called out from somewhere. Futian stepped through the air and arrived next to them. My young friend please. You managed to refine such a miraculous elixir so casually, and it had us all humbled. Thus, we have come to invite you to discuss more about the way of alchemy. We also have some questions that we hope you can provide some guidance on. Bai Mu, who was listening in, was so surprised that her eyes widened, and she was rendered speechless. These stuck-up alchemy masters were going to seek guidance from Futian? Futian had just begun to learn alchemy. She was under the impression that alchemy was very difficult. Could it be that Futian refined an extremely powerful elixir just now? I would like to exchange more ideas with you seniors. However, I'm afraid I won't have many more chances in the future. Futian sighed. Now that the Eastern Deity Island has opened, I might have to leave. While I was training on the Eastern Deity Island, I was continuously pursued by people who wanted me dead, and had no choice but to offend the Jun family virtuosos. The Jun family of the Punlai continent probably hates my guys now, but for some personal reasons, I have no choice but to face them. Once I leave, I don't think I can return. A Punlai continent is no big deal. My young friend wait a little while, and I'll get some people to help and accompany you. Exactly, my young friend don't worry. We will accompany you. I'll go find the island lord now. Leave these matters to us. Voices offering help sounded out, and Futian was almost moved to tears. Such a bunch of wonderful people. Having understood that he suffered injustice, they were willing to help him out. Bai Mu stood there, feeling quite perplexed indeed. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.